Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 8 Part 22 based on novel. So let's start. Within the quiet space, the corners of Lin Dong's eyes twitched due to the stone tablet's words. After which, he turned silent. Thoughts rapidly circulated within his mind. He did not know what the familiar object mentioned by the stone tablet was. Mysterious stone talisman? Devouring ancestral symbol? Or perhaps the ancient universe formation? Might it be all of them? The devouring ancestral symbol has also found another owner. I guess that person has fallen too. The figure on the stone tablet ignored the thoughts within Lin Dong's mind. An ancient and raspy voice slowly sounded out. Lin Dong blinked. It was likely that the person mentioned was the black-eyed old man from back then. Based on the memories obtained from that place, it seemed like the both of them were related due to the mysterious black beings. There are some familiar martial arts on your body that is somewhat similar to that brat, the great desolate king, the figure on the stone tablet continued. The corners of Lin Dong's mouth twitched involuntarily. Was this person mentioning the great desolate imprisoning heavenly hand? This martial arts was something that he had also obtained from the ancient sect. Although it was also a high-grade soul martial arts, Lin Dong seldom used it now as his other skills had grown stronger. Elder, there seems to be something wrong. Lin Dong cupped his hands together towards the stone tablet. After which, his eyes glanced at the black lines on the tablet. The black lines appeared to be moving quietly and it looked as if they possessed some semblance of intelligence. From the looks of it, it really appeared as though the stone tablet was attempting to suppress these things. However, they seemed to be resisting and attempting to erode the stone tablet instead. The stone tablet suddenly trembled intensely while Lin Dong was observing the strange black lines. The black lines below appeared to have been revived at this moment. Countless number of black lines rose and crazily climbed towards the stone tablet. When the black lines were climbing, waves of faint black chi scattered from them. An evil and emotionless ripple also spread apart wherever the black chi passed, while some of the black chi also rushed swiftly towards Lin Dong. Lin Dong's expression changed intensely when he saw this scene as he rapidly retreated. Although it was only a minute amount of black chi, he did not dare to let them touch him. Even this powerful and mysterious stone tablet had wounded up in such a miserable state because of it. Hence, he was truly unable to imagine what would happen if he was eroded by it. Humph! This sudden and unexpected change also caused a low and cold snort to be emitted from the stone tablet. The tablet shook as numerous ancient yellow lights surged downwards. An indescribable strength spread and once again violently suppressed the black lines that were attempting to erode upwards. When the black lines were forced back, Lin Dong could seemingly hear an extremely piercing laughter. A cold and unusual evilness permeated the laughter. This laughter also caused Lin Dong's eyes to shrink violently. Those black lines were indeed an unknown life form. The stone tablet shot out an ancient yellow light ray that scattered the black chi that had shot towards Lin Dong. After which, it finally shrunk back into the stone tablet. Elder, what is that thing? Lin Dong could not help but ask after seeing the stone tablet turn silent again. The stone tablet appeared to ponder quietly for a moment upon hearing Lin Dong's question. Immediately, a light surged on the tablet and transformed into a stone mirror. Light waves surged on the mirror as a scene appeared within it. It was a vast and endless land. Lin Dong saw an extremely enormous stone tablet at that spot. It was surprisingly the great desolate tablet. It was also possible to see quite a number of human figures standing in the sky around the great desolate tablet. Although Lin Dong was unable to discern their appearances, it was possible to tell that these people were all top-tier experts from their auras. At this moment, a fault line seemed to have appeared in the space a great distance in front of those top experts and the stone tablet. Monstrous black chi surged. At that moment, it appeared as though the entire sky was crying. Countless ice-cold evil lights shot out explosively from the black fog. After which, those experts standing in the sky also suddenly attacked. Immediately, the entire place trembled. Although the scene on the stone mirror was only a corner of the battleground, Lin Dong's heart still fluttered. he was truly unable to image the scale of such a battle. Everyone there was more powerful than even their current Dao sect master, Ying Xuanzi. Nonetheless, Lin Dong still saw quite a number of figures falling from the sky when both sides fought. Those unknown creatures that surged out from the fault in space possessed an extremely frightening strength. Light continued to spin on the stone mirror. Finally, it focused on a scene. The Great Desolation Tablet descended from the sky. Monstrous ancient yellow light swept down and suppressed a cluster of extremely enormous black chi. The black chi wiggled and appeared to have transformed into a strange blurry figure. The sharp voice became increasingly soft under the pressure from the stone tablet. Finally, the Great Desolate Tablet suddenly landed. The land crumbled and it was directly buried under the ground. After the Great Desolate Tablet suppressed those unknown creatures, the land once again closed. It was as though it had sealed those unknown creatures underground. In the last scene, Lin Dong could see a human figure rushing out from the Great Desolate Tablet when the land shut itself. His aura overwhelmed the heavens. He looked at the area under the Great Desolate Tablet and sighed softly. After which, he turned around and charged towards the enormous spatial fault. The image ceased at this point. Lin Dong's eyes were a little absent-minded. It was a long while later before he gradually recovered from the shock. He did not know exactly what had occurred in the past. However, it was likely an extremely major event. Otherwise, there would not be so many top-tier experts gathering together to fight against an enemy. That final figure was perhaps the owner of the Great Desolate Tablet, and he used the Great Desolate Tablet to suppress and seal those powerful and unknown beings. Those things were perhaps the same black spots that now plagued the tablet. "Can I help you with anything?" Lin Dong scratched his head and asked. "You are right, I am indeed ill. The source of my illness is due to the thing that I am suppressing." A human figure appeared on the stone tablet as an elderly raspy voice slowly sounded. "Can't you kill it?" Lin Dong mused before asking. "It is only a king. If I am at my peak, I might be able to kill it. However, I am unable to do so now. Before you, there have also been others who have arrived here. However, none of them have returned." The tablet spirit slowly said. "Those are my Dao sect seniors. However, all of them are no longer around." Lin Dong spread out his hand. He immediately hesitated for a moment before speaking. "There are some things within my body. If they can remove that thing, I can loan them to you." "Ha ha, I sense an old friend within your body," the stone tablet laughed softly. When its voice rumbled, Lin Dong could sense that the mysterious stone talisman within his body trembled for a moment. "However, it is even more seriously injured than I am. It is likely no easy task for it to awaken and recover." Lin Dong was stunned. This was the first time that he had heard of any information regarding the mysterious stone talisman. He hurriedly asked, "In that case, does Elder know how to allow it to recover its spirit?" "That will depend on your fate." The stone tablet did not directly reply Lin Dong's question. Instead, it gave an answer that caused one to feel a headache. "There is also the devouring ancestral symbol within my body. Can it help you to remove that thing?" Lin Dong asked. "The strength of one ancestral symbol is insufficient. If I want to kill a king, I will need the strength of 2 ancestral symbols at least," the stone tablet said. Lin Dong laughed bitterly. Just what nonsense was this? One would actually require the strength of 2 ancestral symbols in order to remove it. There were only 8 ancestral symbols in this world. In that case, is there anything that I can help you with? Lin Dong felt somewhat helpless. Those secrets that he were proud of appeared to be completely useless in front of this stone tablet. "I have handed the Great Desolation scripture to those who had arrived here. The condition was that they had to bring 2 ancestral symbols in return and help me to remove it. Unfortunately, none of them returned." An elderly sigh was emitted from within the stone tablet. "It is not easy to find an ancestral symbol." Lin Dong shook his head. This entire world was huge and there were only 8 ancestral symbols. Moreover, some of them even had owners, and these individuals were all extremely powerful experts. Hence, it was obviously not a wise decision to snatch their ancestral symbols. "The current you cannot help me." You are able to see that I am sick, but you are unable to treat me. The raspy voice from the stone tablet caused Lindong to suffer a blow. He could only laugh bitterly and nod his head. However, I can also engage in a transaction with you. The condition of the deal is the same as your seniors. I will hand the Great Desolation Scripture to you. In return, you will bring back 2 ancestral symbols in future to help me to remove it. Lindong mused for a moment and asked, how much time do I have? Less than 3 years. The erosion from that being is becoming increasingly powerful and I have difficulties suppressing it. Should that being be allowed to escape and tear open a spatial fault, the entire world will face a calamity that no one can escape from. The stone tablet slowly said. Moreover, once it escapes, the sect in the outside world will also be the first to be completely destroyed. Lindong's eyes shrunk. His expression gradually became grave. A moment later, he nodded heavily and spoke in a deep voice, Elder, please be rest assured that I will do my best. Should you also fail, you will perhaps be the last person to be entrusted by me. Additionally, do not leak news about this matter to anyone, even to those elders within the sect. The being that I am suppressing is something that no single faction in this world can deal with. Should anything go wrong, the entire world will die. After all, this world no longer possesses an expert like my owner. The voice of the stone tablet became quite solemn towards the end. I know. Lindong breathed in deeply and slowly nodded. The human figure on the tablet also nodded. After which, the tablet shook before the ancient characters actually left the surface and whistled over. Finally, they transformed into 4 ancient yellow characters and suspended themselves in front of Lindong. A vast and barren aura spread apart. The Great Desolation Scripture. Lindong's eyes stared at the 4 large ancient words in front of him. Despite his calm nature, he involuntarily trembled in excitement. The Great Desolation Scripture was personally created by me long ago. Once you master this skill, 1,000 miles within you will be completely desolated. The life force within that 1,000 miles will gather into one body, and its power will be enough to shatter the heavens. An ancient and drawn-out voice sounded out from trembling figure on the tablet. Indistinctly, the voice contained a trace of contentment. Clearly, the tablet spirit was rather satisfied with the martial art that he had created. Furthermore, it seems that you have mastered the martial art left behind by the Great Desolate King. It may be a mere soul martial art. However, after you have successfully mastered the Great Desolation Scripture, due to the way they complement each other, the strength of that martial art will be multiplied. Upon hearing these words, Lindong was slightly stunned. Soon after, happiness and surprise appeared in his eyes. This reward far exceeded his expectations. It appeared that the so-called Great Desolate King had some sort of extraordinary dealings with this tablet spirit. Lindong raised his head and looked the ancient characters that were hovering around his body. He could sense the tremendous cryptic information contained in the characters. Such a martial art had already far surpassed soul martial arts. It had certainly reached the level of a heaven martial art. A so-called heaven martial art was able to manipulate the energy of the land. For example, the Great Desolation Scripture was able to bring desolation to the land and draw upon the power of life. Its might was immeasurable. With it, one would be able to obtain victory even against a stronger opponent. If such a martial art was to be put among the super sects in the East Xian region, it would be considered a martial art that could suppress all the super sects. According to Lindong's appraisal, among his numerous martial arts, only the green heaven materialized dragon skill that he obtained from Qingxi had reached the level of a heaven martial art. Of course, if he was to successfully master the Great Desolation Scripture, it would add on to the number of heaven martial arts he had. Reportedly, there was a type of martial art even more powerful than the heaven martial art. Such a martial art truly possessed the transcending power to destroy the land. Even some extraordinary practitioners and super sects could not get their hands on these martial arts. The true essence of the Great Desolation Scripture lies in the word desolation. The previous breakthrough you had indicates that you have a rather deep understanding of desolation, the tablet spirit explained plainly. Desolation might be desolate, but it doesn't strip all living beings of their life force. In the cycle of life for all living beings, desolation merely collects their life forces until the time comes for spring to fill the land. Lin Dong conscientiously recorded all the information given by the tablet spirit into his brain. After a while, he softly said, "Many thanks to Elder for your guidance. I see that you have already understood these principles. It can't really be considered as guidance. Your mastery of the Great Desolation scripture in future will still depend on your own capabilities," the tablet spirit replied. "Yes." Lin Dong gave a respectful bow to the tablet spirit. He sat down cross-legged, taking in a deep breath as he suppressed the surging excitement in his heart. Following which, his face gradually regained its calm. As Lin Dong focused, the huge ancient characters that were hovering around his body whizzed towards his head. As the characters made contact with his head, they directly passed through his skull. As the huge ancient characters entered his mind, Lin Dong's body began to tremble violently. He could feel a series of ancient and cryptic information spread throughout his mind. Even with his current strength, that boundless information gave him a head-splitting headache. It was so painful that a look of agony flashed across his face. A soft groan that was filled with pain emerged from Lin Dong's throat. Soon after, he clenched his teeth and forcefully suppressed the intense pain. He concentrated fully on absorbing the vast and cryptic information in his mind. Although he had obtained a powerful martial art in the Great Desolation scripture, it would not be an easy task to master it. However, Lin Dong did not have the slightest bit of fear. He had passed through the most difficult stage. How could he let go of something he already had his hands on? Lin Dong sat quietly in the peaceful dimension that was filled with darkness. As time passed, the ancient yellow glow from his body became increasingly stronger. Under the illumination of that glow, the rock that he was seated on silently shattered. Atop the stone tablet, the tablet spirit observed every single movement of Lin Dong. After a long time, the tablet spirit spoke in a deep and ancient voice, "I hope nothing bad will happen to the person chosen this time. There's not much time left." Just as the tablet spirit finished his sentence, the black lines at the base of the stone tablet started to wiggle. Indistinctly, an ear-piercing laughter was heard from them. "Great Desolation tablet, you have still not given up after so many years. Once again, you're putting your hopes on this lad now, huh?" This is the first time the unknown entity had spoken. Its voice was filled with an indescribable evil and coldness. The entity was like a devil that came from a land of endless evil. Don't celebrate too early. He possesses the devouring ancestral symbol and hence has the highest chance of obtaining many ancestral symbols. As long as he can bring back 2 ancestral symbols, I will be able to eradicate you completely, the tablet spirit smiled faintly. You think everyone is like that master of yours? However, even someone as powerful as your master fell in the end. Who else can stop us in this world? We shall see. The tone of the tablet spirit's ancient voice did not change at all even when it heard those words. The spirit merely smiled. Once again, the glow on the stone tablet began to surge and suppressed the spreading black lines back into the ground. After the black lines had been suppressed, the tablet spirit looked silently at the motionless youth. Suddenly, a beam of light shot out and engulfed Lin Dong's body. Following which, traces of the ancient yellow glow seeped into Lin Dong's body. Under the permeation of the ancient yellow glow, the surface of Lin Dong's body started to be surrounded by an aura of desolation. Enshrouded in the faint aura of desolation, the agony on Lin Dong's face began to lessen. Eventually, the agony on his face disappeared completely. "Lin Dong, this is all I can help you with. I hope you can complete the transaction between us. Otherwise, all living things of this world will die." The time continued to pass silently. In the blink of an eye, another half a month had passed. Over this half a month, the Tao sect in quite an uproar. The source of all this was naturally the strange situation before the Great Desolate Tablet. The youthful figure, whom everyone thought had failed, was being tightly enshrouded in the glow emitted by the Great Desolate Tablet. An extremely powerful repulsive force was given off by it, making it impossible for hall leaders like Chen Zhen to get close. With the addition of this half a month, Lin Dong had spent a total of 2 months seated before the Great Desolate Tablet. In these 2 months, the Desolate Hall had undoubtedly become the most lively place in the Tao sect. The 4 hall leaders were not the only ones waiting here, even some elders who had been in seclusion revealed themselves and waited here. It goes to show the importance of this event. In a certain area of the sky, Jiang Hao, Pang Tong, and the other 2, who had previously failed to comprehend the Great Desolation scripture, had awoken. All this time, they had been standing guard at this area while watching the thin figure before the stone tablet with complicated looks on their faces. No one had believed that Lin Dong, who had joined the desolate hall for the least amount of time, would become the first person in 100 years to successfully comprehend the Great Desolation scripture. Some people might consider Lin Dong's recent achievements to be small feats. However, after what happened this time around, no one dared to say anything anymore. It had been 100 years since the legendary genius of the Tao sect had managed to comprehend the Great Desolation scripture. This record had finally been broken. And the one who broke this record was a young disciple who had only joined the Tao sect for less than a year. All the Desolate Hall's disciples wore a smile on their faces whenever they saw the disciples from the other 3 halls. Once again, they had regained the confidence that they lacked for a long time. Even the disciples from the Sky Hall could not express any sense of superiority over the confidence that the Desolate Hall's disciples displayed. That was because they clearly understood that once the youth seated before the stone tablet managed to successfully comprehend the Great Desolation scripture, the upcoming hall competition would be much more exciting. Even though the onlookers knew there was some disparity between Lin Dong and Ying Xiaoxiao, they also knew that the might of the Great Desolation scripture would be able to compensate for this disparity. It seemed that there would be an epic battle in the hall competition this time around. To think that you actually show signs of succeeding. At another spot in the sky, Ying Huan curled her lips and said while looking at the figure before the stone tablet. After knowing Lin Dong might not fail, the emotions that she expressed previously had been withdrawn. Naturally, the main reason behind this was the murmurs she had heard regarding the hall competition. In this situation, she clearly stood by her sister. You seemed miserable when you saw that he was going to fail. Now, you purposely say these words to please me. Ying Xiaoxiao teased as she cast a smiling glance at Ying Huan. No way. Even if Lin Dong comprehends the Great Desolation scripture, he will not be a match for you. Ying Huan quickly made her stand. That might not necessarily be true. With regards to these words, Ying Xiaoxiao shook her head lightly. Her eyes were fixated on the figure before the stone tablet. An extremely rare fire was burning within her eyes. I want to see exactly how formidable the Great Desolation scripture is. When Ying Huan saw Ying Xiaoxiao's facial expression, she secretly stuck out her tongue. It seemed that Ying Xiaoxiao had begun to view Lin Dong as a potential opponent. Of course, this was also due to the competitive spirit within her. After all, Ying Xiaoxiao had previously failed at comprehending the Great Desolation scripture. The result is about to be revealed. Just as Ying Huan was about to say something, Ying Xiaoxiao suddenly commented as she focused. Upon hearing these words, Ying Huan was slightly startled. Sure enough, the glow on the Great Desolate tablet gradually dimmed, as the skinny figure that was engulfed in the beam of light once again appeared before everyone's anxious gazes. Everyone's eyes were glued to the figure, while their faces were filled with nervousness. They wanted to know, was Lin Dong's 2 months a success, or a failure? The gigantic pillar of light began to dissipate. As the pillar of light dissipated, the skinny figure who had spent the past 2 months quietly seated within, finally appeared before everyone's attentive gazes. At this point of time, a momentary silence seemed to sweep across the entire area. Amidst the silence, the youth, who was seated before the stone tablet, slowly opened his eyes. The moment his eyes opened, everyone could sense a formless energy wave spread out from his body. As the formless energy wave extended outwards, the onlookers shockingly observed the ground and trees that were within 100 feet of Lin Dong begin to wither at a shocking rate. In the twinkling of an eye, the previously lush greenery had become yellowish and desolate. That energy wave was somewhat similar to the desolate force of the Desolate Hall. However, this energy wave was much more pure in essence and terrifying. This was the legitimate desolate chi. At this moment, the facial expressions of those who could feel this energy wave turned exceptionally grave. Was this the power of the Great Desolation scripture? It was indeed extraordinary. This desolate chi is much purer than the one given off by the desolate stone. Wu Dao stared at Lin Dong, while an excited look appeared on his aged face. Chen Zhen nodded his head. Finally, a contented smile appeared on his wrinkled face as well. He then chuckled. It seems that this lad has succeeded. Truly unexpected. The whole leader of the Sky Hall, Chi Lei, sighed repeatedly. Soon after, he chortled, it seems like there will be a good show in the upcoming hall competition. However, don't be celebrating yet, old fellow. Even though Lin Dong has successfully comprehended the great desolate scripture, his is still weak. Our Xiao Xiao has already reached the 9 yuan nirvana stage. Likewise, the Sky Emperor scripture has long been mastered by her. I'm afraid it will be no easy task for Lin Dong to defeat her. Ha ha, Lin Dong has even managed to learn the Great Desolation scripture, what else is impossible? Chen Zhen laughed. He clearly understood that Ying Xiaoxiao was the most outstanding disciple among the Dao sect younger generation members. Furthermore, her innate gifts were preeminent. At such a young age, she was able to reach the 9 yuan nirvana stage. Let alone the Dao sect, if she was placed among the younger generation in the entire Eastern Xian region, she would definitely be at the apex. Even though a dark horse like Lin Dong was able to emerge as a new force to be reckoned with in less than a year, there was still a huge disparity between him and Ying Xiaoxiao. Previously, the reason why he was able to match up against Yao Ling was due to the fact that he swallowed 5 immortal yuan ancient fruits. This time around, he would not have 5 immortal yuan ancient fruits, and even if he had, he would not be allowed to use them. After all, this was a competition for the disciples to swap pointers, not fight for one's life like the battle against Yao Ling. However, even so, Chen Zhen was unwilling to let Lin Dong lose face. Currently, this young lad had successfully comprehended the Great Desolation scripture and he was considered a figure of importance to the Desolate Hall. After he received proper training, he would become a heavyweight in the Dao sect. Let us wait for the whole competition in 2 months then. The Sky Hall will not give up the position as the leader of the 4 halls so easily, Chi Lei laughed. I'm afraid it's not up to you. Chen Zhen chuckled as well. Following which, both men looked at each other and let out a hearty laugh. Wu Dao and his counterparts were at ease as well. Clearly, they were in an extremely good mood. After all, the re-emergence of the Great Desolation scripture was good news for the Dao sect. Amidst the various commotions that filled the mountains, Lin Dong deeply exhaled. Following which, he stood up and fixated his gaze upon the gigantic stone tablet before him. Then, he bent his body and gave a respectful bow to the stone tablet. This young one will do his best to fulfill Elder's request, Lin Dong said in a deep voice. He knew that he could not reject this request. Even if it was not because the Great Desolate Tablet had given him the Great Desolation scripture, he still had to help the Dao sect to eliminate that unknown entity. Otherwise, once the unknown entity escaped, the entire Dao sect would be destroyed. Furthermore, if the ancient images that he saw were real, this entity would be a world-ending calamity that no one could escape from. Even though the Dao sect was very powerful, Lin Dong knew that this unknown entity, which previously took the combined forces of all the practitioners of this land to defeat, was far more powerful and terrifying. Lin Dong seldom took the initiative to protect something. From the start, all he wanted was to protect his small home and his family members. After leaving his home, Lin Dong had been through a lot. However, there was not much that could make him have such thoughts. Now, he finally had another home to protect. The Great Desolate Tablet seemed to have heard Lin Dong's words as its body slightly trembled. Following which, a small crack appeared on the stone tablet and 2 tiny orbs of light shot out and levitated in front of Lin Dong. They appeared to be 2 perfectly round, thumb-sized, yellowish stone beads. Even though these 2 objects were not eye-catching, Lin Dong could sense rather terrifying energy waves from them. Furthermore, as the 2 stone beads fell out from the stone tablet, Li Dong could see that the color and luster of the Great Desolate Tablet become slightly duller. These are desolation beads. In times of trouble, they might be of some help to you. This is all I can do to help you. Whether you can find another ancestral symbol will depend entirely on you. I hope we are able to meet again. The ancient voice of the Great Desolate Tablet silently rang across Lin Dong's mind. After finishing its sentence, the huge stone table suddenly trembled furiously, as the ground began to tremble as well. A crevice started to extend outward from under the stone tablet. Under numerous gazes, the gigantic stone tablet gradually sank into the crevice. Eventually, it disappeared into the ground once more. Lin Dong watched the closing crevice and nodded his head lightly. With a flip of his palm, he kept the 2 desolation beads. These 2 artifacts contain formidable powers, but he would not use them unless it was an emergency. After the great desolate tablet had completely disappeared into the crevice, Lin Dong turned around. At this point of the time, the nearby areas were filled with a vast sea of people. Numerous fervent looks were gathered on him. Even though the onlookers had guessed what had happened, they still wanted an absolute answer. An answer that was worth the 2 painstaking months of waiting in this place. Upon facing such scenario, even with Lin Dong's temperament, his hair could not help but stand on end. The onlookers looked like vicious wolves that could not wait to rip him apart. "Hey, so did you succeed? Say something at least." While Lin Dong was feeling helpless, in a nearby area of the sky, a young girl with a jet-black ponytail flew forward with both her hands on her slender waist. A crisp and lovable voice resounded clearly through the sky. "Senior Sister Huan Huan is right, say something." After Ying Huan Huan finished her sentence, the previously silent sea of onlookers broke out into an uproar. Everyone was getting worked up. At this moment, Lin Dong clearly saw the rallying effect that Ying Huan Huan had on the younger disciples of the Tao sect. Let alone the 3 other halls, even some disciples of Desolate Hall stood behind Ying Huan Huan, demanding an answer. This scene put Lin Dong in between laughter and tears. At the same time, a mysterious feeling of warmth arose in his heart. After staying in that world of darkness for 2 months, it was rather heartwarming to see all his fellow disciples once again. Ying Huan Huan looked smilingly at the helpless-looking Lin Dong. The corners of her mouth were slightly curled. Apparently, the young girl was pleased with herself for rallying so much support. Meanwhile, Ying Xiaoxiao's facial expression remained steadfast with regards to the current situation. However, a slight trace of happiness could be found deep within her eyes. The re-emergence of the Great Desolation scripture was rather significant for their entire Tao sect. Hence, she did not stop Ying Huan Huan when she intentionally rallied tens of thousands of disciples into heckling Lin Dong. Similarly, the 4 hall leaders in the sky were brightly smiling at this scene. As the center of attention, Lin Dong cast a glance at Ying Huan Huan, whose face was filled with contentment because of what she had done. Soon after, a smile appeared on Lin Dong's face as well as he took a step forward. The moment Lin Dong took a step forward, an aura of desolation rapidly extended outwards from where he stood. The power of desolation arose from the ground and gushed into Lin Dong's body. As the power gushed into his body, Lin Dong's moving figure suddenly disappeared. Under the sky full of alarm cries, he appeared before Ying Huan Huan. With lightning speed, he tried to tap Ying Huan Huan's bright and clean forehead using his index finger that was filled with intense desolate qi. The speed of Lin Dong's action seemed to be 2 times faster than before. Hence, when Ying Huan Huan saw the incoming finger that was filled with terrifying desolation qi, she could only watch on helplessly and could not avoid. However, even though she could not avoid, the young girl was still rather obstinate. Biting her lips without shouting for help, her bright and beautiful big eyes stared straight at Lin Dong. Eventually, Lin Dong's finger stopped half an inch before the young girl's forehead. Upon seeing this, Ying Huan Huan's eyebrows showed sign of raising up. However, before her eyebrows formed a pleased expression, Lin Dong's finger bent and viciously flicked her forehead. "Whether I succeed or not, I don't need to elaborate any further, right?" Lin Dong chuckled while looking at the young girl, who had a red forehead and a bitter look on her face, while itching to take a huge bite out of him. Silence dominated the area. Following which, thunderous cheers and roars rang across the land. Some Desolate Hall disciples' faces were even filled with intense emotions. The Desolate Hall's long-awaited day had finally arrived. On a mountain peak far away, Ying Xuanzi watched the noisy celebration. A gentle smile appeared on his jade-like face. His gaze contained a look reminiscence. 100 years ago, this place was bustling with excitement like this. Jutong, there's finally a junior who has surpassed you. Ying Xuanzi chuckled softly. Soon after, he turned his body and left as a sigh of relief silently echoed through the air. This video will end here.